Tony Carne, General Manager of Urban Adventures, and Jack Lewis, President of Fat Tire Tours. Hi, welcome.
Hey.
Thank you.
Let's start with the pop quiz. So, name for me a hotel brand that you think most people you stopped off the street would probably know. Tony.
Marriott.
Jack.
Hilton.
Air brand.
Oh, sorry.
Air brand? An airline brand?
Qantas.
American Airlines.
Tours and activities brand. Can't say your own.
People would probably say TripAdvisor.
Okay.
Airbnb.
Interesting. Okay, so we just named the actual supplier operators of air and hotel, right? But when it came to tours and activities, we named some intermediaries. So why is it that in other travel segments, right, that we have these globally recognized brands, but here for the tours and activities, it's not there yet, even though there's been incredible growth within this sector?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's down to the newness of our part of the industry. From an Urban Adventures point of view, we're only 10 years old. From an Arrival point of view, we're only 3 years old. So it's really early days. You know, Qantas has been flying since 1928. So they had a bit of a head start to get a brand out there, and the hotels as well. So I think it's coming, but yeah, things take time. Yeah,
Yep.
Of course, we're in a hurry, but the public aren't always. So.
It's also really diverse. Tour and activities kind of meet travelers' interests, and the whole array of travelers' interests is so diverse.
Yep.
So, you know, for Fat Tire Tours, a bicycle tour company to become the global brand, it would require that most of the globe wanted to do a bicycle tour, and that's probably not the case.
Yep.
So that's going to make it more difficult, just because it's such a diverse offering and trying to meet the traveler, you know, exactly where they want to be met, and can you find critical mass of what one thing everyone actually wants.
Yeah, and you know, even though some of these other segments, brands have been around a long time, people are taking Qantas to fly somewhere to do something, right? So they've been doing activities for just as long. So then I guess the question is, do consumers care when it comes to this segment that they want this brand that is present across destinations and that it's globally recognized?
We're certainly hoping that they do. Trying to build a brand that stands for something that a customer will seek out and return to over and over again. But like I said, that's a journey. I think in 10 years we've taken a fraction over 1 million customers, so they know who we are, I hope, and doing things like on-ground branding, branded uniforms, and having a strong value set that relates to your customer. All these types of things are what will help us chip that away. Looking at it the other way, some of the newer OTAs in our sectors also have a lot of money. Airbnb, you mentioned before, is not an old brand either. I think it's 10 or 11 years. But $3 billion buys you a lot of exposure. So
Yeah, absolutely.
That's helpful.
And so let's look at it from the operator perspective, right? At what point do you think that they know that they're ready to start expanding into more destinations, but beyond the one that maybe they've got some good local traction, they've really covered that particular market? When do they know they're ready?
I think it really comes down to a personal decision of whether or not the operator is interested in expanding and growing beyond what they are. I think a lot of the operators right now, it's owner-operator. They're the ones not only just taking the bookings, but actually giving the tours themselves. And so I think to know when you're ready, first has to be a desire and interest to grow and for it to be more than what it is right now. And I think everyone wants more, but not everyone wants that much more. And to do what you're doing and then try to manage it across multiple locations. So I think you're ready when you have that desire, but also at the same time, you can kind of pinpoint what areas of your business are you really successful at, and then kind of evaluating those areas, and do you have the systems and processes in place that would allow you to replicate them across multiple destinations? Because if you don't really understand what's driving your business, and then have a strong faith that you can actually replicate that across scale, then you're probably not ready to do it.
Yeah. just speaking from our own perspective, we started the business with the idea of scale in mind. So that was actually in the original design of Urban Adventures. We didn't start as one city and then see how it goes and try and move on from there. And I guess in terms of, it was really interesting to hear James's story about Devour yesterday, and how he's having a great time in Madrid, and his customers said, "Oh, you should, we're going to Barcelona, can you help us out there?" And that prompted that move for him to think about it and then move that way. From the Urban Adventures perspective, our core business is to help local guides start a business they own. So that's what we do as core business. And therefore, our mindset at the very beginning was we want to be in a lot of places. I remember in the original business plan, the founder of Intrepid said, your tagline is going to be day tours in over 100 cities. And we had 25 cities, and we're opening. We're like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. He said, get busy. So we did, yeah.
So then, as operators decide, okay, I'm ready, I have that desire and drive, what do they need to be thinking about in terms of how is this going to change my business operations, right? Going from just one destination to being ready to serve multiple destinations.
I think you have to have a really strong foundation. And I think you have to really understand your product. And I think to continue to give James from Devour even more representation, but he said something about passion. And the idea for growth for him was the idea of knowing that product, and he had a passion around that product, and he talked about how that passion kind of led that. And that definitely resonates with what we've done at Fat Tire Tours. And that idea of growth was, well, we had to, above all else, be grounded in what it was that we were delivering. Because distribution and technology and everything else that comes with growing the brand will crumble if the core product and the core belief and the core values of what it is that you're delivering aren't ironclad. So as you grow, it's really important that you protect those core values. You protect that original passion and mission of what it was you set out to do, and then try to find ways and systems to say, okay, if I go to destination 2 and 3 and 4, can I do that in such a way while protecting that core values, that core passion that got me into this business to begin with?
Yeah, and I think some more practical steps along the way. If you're in City 1, and you haven't got to the point where you've hired an operations manager, if you're the founder, you're the original guide, you're the inspiration behind what you're doing, and you built something up. I remember watching one of the presentations from Arrival in Bangkok, and the lady from the food tour business in Hong Kong, she talked about sneaky growth. She wasn't really trying that hard, but the business got really good, and then she was making some money, and then she started to think about, well, this could be bigger, and I could be in lots of different places. But her next step was actually to hire an operations manager for the founding city, and because you want to either have somebody that you really trust go and set up City 2, or be really trustful that City 1's going to be okay while you're away. And I think it could be a big mistake to go, well, I've got a great bunch of guides, I'll try and do ops while I'm trying to set up a new city. I don't think that's a good plan.
Yeah, and so here on stage, we have two pretty diverse representations of how you can start to expand into multiple destinations, right? So Urban Adventures, you guys are part of Intrepid, you're in a couple hundred destinations now, right? So
155,
for tours and activities, that's a pretty big company, right?
Yep.
And then Fat Tire Tours, you guys started in Paris with one product, Bike Tours, grew to a couple different products, and now 12 cities. So we decided you're a medium-sized company, right? Considering that most are one destination. So they can go with the franchise model, joining your family, your brand, or do it the Fat Tires way, where you go into new destinations on their own and try and build it from there. So what should they be thinking about when they decide which journey is the right way for me to do this?
Sure. Well, I would say franchising is pretty tough. So it's you want to know who you are 100%, and that's your core values, your way of operating, the way that you train people, the way you want them to represent your brand. First, you have to live that yourself, and it has to really come out in every single thing that you do, because You're asking people to believe in that system that's going to be their livelihood and their income going forward. So it's something that you've got to really make sure you've got that core piece right first. And then you've got to work out, so who is going to represent this brand in another place, and who is the best target for that. And I would say it took us 3 years, maybe more, to figure out exactly the right people that we were looking for to take on Urban Adventures businesses. Of course, along the journey, we signed up a lot of people who weren't the right people. And so that's a whole other world of pain that you need to go through to understand, because you can't have those people hang around if they're not the right representation of your brand. So, if I was going down this path, I would look at how other franchises work outside of the travel industry, and try and take as many cues from that as I could. Maybe try and meet people who are franchisors and just understand a bit more about what it's all about before going, that's the plan, and I'm going to go do it.
And how did you decide, these are the right people to take on this destination and represent me? What is your process for evaluating a potential franchisee and making that choice?
Sure. So when we first started, I guess we had two streams that we went down. One was who's a little local business in a city we want to be in that already represents the values that we believe in. So who's already really supporting their community, who believes in responsible travel, who believes in experiential travel. Let's go and find that person and have a chat to them about potentially representing our brand there. In general, I would say they weren't the right person for us, because if you are Bob's Bike Tours in Barcelona and you're the founder of that business, you love that business. That is your baby. You've built it and you've grown it. And then if you say to Bob, how about you run Barcelona Urban Adventures? It's kind of this is the one you love and this is the one that you're giving a go at. And really the best you can hope for is that they might put 50% of effort into Bob's and 50% of effort into their new business, and 50% of something's not going to work.
Yeah.
So that was one strategy. The other strategy was, I'm a tour guide at heart. That's how I started in the industry. Tour guides, that's my tribe. Pretty much all my friends are tour guides. I married a tour guide. That's the world I live in, and I think they're extraordinary people. So what we ultimately ended up wanting to do was to give people who were tour guides but had some ambition to take that further in their life an opportunity to have a turnkey solution where they could start by doing the things that they're good at, which is running tours, being great with customers, giving excellent experiences, but not having to think so much about basically everything this conference is about: res systems, SEO, SEM, marketing stacks, all that kind of stuff. So we take care of that bit and they take care of the customer, and that seems to work pretty well.
Yeah. And Jack, you mentioned, right, the importance of protecting those core values, and core values so much tie into brand standards, right? So how do you set brand standards and make sure they're being replicated consistently across the multiple destinations that you're operating in?
Setting the brand standards is the more simple. It's not easy, right? It's sitting around in a room with stakeholders and determining what those core values are, what that mission statement is, and whether your organization has defined those or not, they exist. So that exercise is really about extracting it. For us, what we do to protect that across all 12 locations is we've created metrics to say, hey, if fun is really important to us, or excellence is really important to us, or professionalism is really important to us, how do we survey our customers to see how we're gauging across that? So we send internal review requests to all of our customers, and we get an overall tour rating, tour guide quality rating, tour information rating, tour value rating, and tour value rating, and that's assigned to an actual tour guide. And so we can track that across products, across destinations, across the guides, and then we've got a specific director of guest experience whose job is to mine that data. And to mine that data, one, to make sure that we're hitting those standards, but also to mine that data and try to recognize areas of opportunity where we can then add it to what we call a challenge board, and then that information then gets passed throughout the ranks of the company to our operations team. So our directors of operations then deal with our general managers on a weekly basis and say, hey, here's something we're noticing. This is an ongoing trend about a particular person, or it's a trend within the region. We're seeing this. How are we going to attack this? How are we going to provide better value in this product line? So really it's what's important to you, how do you measure how good you're doing at it, and then put your money where your mouth is and actually listen to that feedback, because that feedback is what's going to allow you to continue to grow your business, to protect it. Protecting your brand standards is really about increasing them. You can't just protect it.
I want to jump in with a question. When I think about the tours and activities and attractions, marketplace, well, really it's tours and activities, because there's clearly large kind of attractions that are brands, right? Like the Coliseum, I guess you could say, is a brand, or certainly Disney is a brand. But so when I think about like where we are in this marketplace today, it's kind of like, well, maybe it's coffee shops before McDonald's. There were millions of different types of a Starbucks before. There were millions of different types of coffee shops. But what makes Starbucks so powerful is wherever I am in the world, I go into a Starbucks, I have the same experience from the same barista, and I get the same cup of coffee at the same strength, with the same kind of cup and the same color. But with tours, like, what are those key ingredients? I mean, I've seen, okay, you can have the same T-shirt and the same lollipop sign. You can even have the same kind of story formula for the guides. But, I mean, is that really enough? Like, what needs to happen for there to be a truly global tour brand? Or is it not going to happen?
It's a super question. Because imagine traveling to somewhere fantastic and exotic, and going to different places and then having the same experience when you get there. That would be pretty terrible. It's not a world I want to live in. So what do we measure? We measure our ability to deliver on our promise. So our promise is we give our customer the best day ever. How do we measure that? We survey our customers using the Net Promoter System. And if we believe that we can deliver on that promise of excellence.
But what's the ingredient? I understand the measurement piece, but I mean, I can have a best day there are a lot of great tour companies. I mean, Urban Adventures is great, but there's a lot of great tour companies and great tour guides. Without sharing the secret sauce, but can you share some of the ingredients?
I think it's, at Starbucks, they have the luxury of that latte should taste the same at every location. But when I go have an experience in Italy, I don't want that experience to feel like what I experienced in Berlin, because Italy's not Berlin. And so I think it's not as easily quantifiable as to what those ingredients are, because the ingredients is just an authenticity, it's excellence, it's customer service, it's a lot of softer things. If I'm a fly fishing and I'm going to expand a fly fishing business across several different places, am I catching fish? Am I having fun? Is that being successful? But maybe it's a different type of fish, right? So I don't know if it's as easy as those physical consumer goods are able to make it the exact same. I think there are some softer sides to how you brand an actual experience.
And maybe to give you just some examples within the urban adventures world, we say we want to have conversations, not lectures. So what does that mean? We want to be different to a historical tour where it's the recital of facts. We want to have our guides show their city through their lens, and 3/5 of the tour should be about that guide's lived experience in that city and how it relates to what the customer's experiencing right now. So if we're going to go eat something, we're going to go eat something at a place that guide thinks is the best. And we give our guides lots of freedom into the places that they take people, because we want them to tell their story. And when we arrive at that place, we want the vendor to recognise that person because they've been coming there since they were 8 years old. And we want, if it's Italy, we want some kiss, kiss, hug, hug. And we want our customers to be involved in that. And for us, that creates a vibe, if you like, that permeates throughout the entire Urban Adventures range if we've got our training right. And in a lot of places, to become a tour guide, in Egypt you have to go to university for 4 years and you learn by rote what it is that you have to say when you are a tour guide. And when I first went out there, I went to the Egyptian Museum with our tour guide, and we were standing waiting for something. And I said, "What are we waiting for?" And he said, "I'm waiting for that guide to move away from that statue so I can go over there and say the same thing that he's saying now." You know, like, I want to be the opposite of that. I want to give my guides total freedom to tell their story. And that's what we concentrate on. So is that commoditization? It's a training strategy, absolutely. Is it something our customers recognize? We believe it is. And that's why they would choose us, because they know that that's the known quality and quantity that they'll get when they book an urban adventure.
I don't know if they'll become a Marriott. I don't know if they'll become a Starbucks of tour and activity. I think that one big advantage that tour and activity operators have, though, is that we are delivering experiences in some of the most incredible destinations in the world. And so you have a really long touch point with that consumer, and they've got such high emotion and emotional attachment to that idea and that adrenaline of travel. So if you're a tour guide at the Coliseum, you have the ability to attach your brand to that experience. And for the rest of their life, when they think about the Coliseum, they have the opportunity to think about Fat Tire Tours and the time that they had with Fat Tire Tours for those 4 hours. And that's really powerful. It's way more powerful than the way a latte tastes. It may not be as scalable as selling a latte, but it's definitely more powerful.
Yep, and on that note, that's all the time we have. So thank you so much, Tony Carne and Jack Lewis.